Good morning. I'll invite the Honourable Premier to say prayers today.
Good morning. Let us pray. Almighty God, from whom all wisdom and power are derived, we beseech thee so to direct and prosper the deliberations of the Legislative Assembly now assembled, that all things may be ordered upon the best and surest foundations for the glory of thy name, and for the safety, honour, and welfare of the people of these islands. Bless our Sovereign Lady, Queen Elizabeth II, Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, Charles, Prince of Wales, and all the royal family. Give grace to all who exercise authority in our Commonwealth, that peace and happiness, truth and justice, religion and piety may be established among us. Especially we pray for the Governor of our islands, the Premier, the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, the Leader of the Opposition, Ministers of the Cabinet, ex officio members, and members of the Legislative Assembly, that we may be enabled faithfully to perform the responsible duties of our high office. All this we ask for thy great name's sake. Let us say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. The Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make his face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon us and give us peace, now and always. Amen.
Please be seated.
Administration of oaths or affirmations, oath of allegiance and due execution by Ms. Jennifer Margaret Ahern, the Honourable Acting Deputy Governor responsible for the civil service, to be the temporary ex officio member of the Legislative Assembly.
I now invite Ms. Ahern to approach the dais. Please rise.
I, Jennifer Margaret Ahern, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law, so help me God. I, Jennifer Margaret Ahern, do solemnly and sincerely affirm and declare that I will well and truly serve Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, and the people of the Cayman Islands in the office of Member of the Legislative Assembly.
Ms. Ahern, it's now the House privilege to welcome you as the Acting Deputy Governor to the Honourable Legislative Assembly. Please take your seat.
Reading by the Honourable Speaker of messages and announcements.
None.
Presentation of petitions.
None.
Presentation of papers and reports. Financial statements of Cayman Islands Health Services Authority, 30th of June 2015, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Premier, Minister of Home Affairs, Health and Culture.
Recognize the Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, thank you for your indulgence. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the financial statements of the Cayman Islands Health Services Authority for the year ending 30th of June 2015.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Premier wish to speak to the report?
Yes, Madam Speaker, briefly.
Please proceed.
In accordance with Section 52, subsection 5 of the Public Management and Finance Law 2013 revision, I am pleased today to lay on the table of this Honourable House the audit report of the Cayman Islands Health Services Authority for the fiscal year ended 30th of June 2015. The Cayman Islands Health Services Authority is a statutory body that was established as an authority on the 1st of July 2002 under the Health Services Authority law. The purpose of the Health Services Authority is to provide health care services and facilities in the Cayman Islands in accordance with the National Health Policy and Strategic Plan prepared by the Cayman Islands government. Madam Speaker, the authority provides primary and secondary levels of health care services for the three islands, and its facilities include the following health care agencies: the Cayman Islands Hospital in Georgetown, Grand Cayman, Faith Hospital in Cayman Brac, and a range of community-based services, including the Little Cayman Health Center, the Georgetown General Practice Clinic, the West Bay Health Center, the Bordentown Health Center, the East End Health Center, the Northside Health Center, the Public Health Unit, the Lions Eye Clinic, Georgetown Dental Clinic, Marin's Dental Clinic, and Cayman Brac Dental Clinic. Madam Speaker, in reviewing the audited financial statements for the year ended the 30th of June 2015, the Health Services Authority recorded total revenues from government, patient service fees, and other sources of $104,351,369. The total operating expenses reported were $106,056,671. The reported net loss for the year was $1,705,302 compared to the year 2014, where the net income was $3,535,479. The current assets for the year were reported at $40,207,285, and the fixed assets were $63,117,364. The Health Services Authority also reported total assets of $103,324,649 and total liabilities of $24,715,552. The net assets for the year were reported at $78,609,097. At 30th of June 2015, the Health Services Authority ended the fiscal period with a positive cash balance of $6.6 million compared to the 2014 balance of $17.6 million. Madam Speaker, the Auditor General completed the audit and issued a qualified opinion on the financial statements of the Health Services Authority for the period. A qualified opinion means that a portion of the financial statements cannot be relied upon, but the rest of the statements can be relied upon by the reader. Madam Speaker, the Auditor General pointed out 4 significant matters that influenced her decision to arrive at her opinion. 1, ineffective controls over completeness of patient revenues, patient service fees. The Auditor General stated that she was unable to satisfy herself that the reported amount for patient service fees of $89.9 million is fairly stated on the Statement of Comprehensive Income. In addition, the authority could not represent to her that the controls for the recording of patient service fees are effective to ensure that reported revenues are complete. Also, because of the lack of internal controls, sufficient audit procedures could not be performed. In response, the Health Services Authority management advised that the authority is working on its action plan developed in 2015 towards achieving an unqualified audit opinion for the year ending 2018. With revenue completeness as a priority, internal controls have been developed to measure compliance. Physician documentation is being standardized, which will support coding and billing in an effort to improve revenue capture, review, and reconciliation. The second point, Madam Speaker, completeness and valuation of patient-related accounts receivables. The Auditor General stated that she was unable to satisfy herself that the net amount of accounts receivable of $23.7 million as shown on the statement of financial position is fairly stated. She went on to say that she was unable to perform sufficient audit procedures for this amount and the review of subsequent receipts from patients to satisfy her of the provision of bad debts at 30th of June 2015. The Auditor General also pointed out that as at 30th of June 2015, the authority had recorded $2.2 million of funds received from Cineco that it could not reconcile to individual receivables in its revenue system. The Auditor General concluded that given the above matters regarding the amount reported for patient accounts receivable, she was unable to satisfy herself that the amount of $69.1 million reported as the accumulated deficit in the net worth section of the statement of financial position was accurately reported. In response, the HSA's management stated that as soon as revenue completeness is corrected, the accounts receivable matter will be addressed as they are directly related. The board and management of the HSA have developed 8 strategies to address the bad debt issue, which are as follows: maximize billing, collect self-pay portion of claim at the time of service, and enforce collection of payment for elective surgery before procedure; reduce denials from insurance providers; ensure accurate costing billing of services provided; reestablish the output for emergency services; pursue bad debts; identify uninsured patients and make appropriate referrals to the Needs Assessment Unit and our Department of Children and Family Services; implement and enforce bad debt policy so that bad debts are written off in a timely manner. The third issue, Madam Speaker, was unrecognized estimated liability on post-retirement health care costs. The Auditor General stated that the Health Services Authority did not estimate the liability for its post-employment health care plan, as no actuarial valuation was completed. In addition, the authority did not record the liability on the statement of financial position or provide disclosures in the notes to the financial statements. In response, the HSA management advised that all the statutory authority and government companies are in the process of gathering the information required in order to engage an actuarial firm to quantify the liability. Once this process is completed, Cabinet will be informed so that a policy decision can be made on those persons who were vested with the government for 10 years prior to the establishment of the authority. The fourth issue, Madam Speaker, is the accumulated deficit. The auditor stated that accumulated deficit is also understated to the extent of the current and past service costs relating to the non-recognition of the post-employment health care plan. In response, the HSA management advised that this amount will be correctly stated with the valuation of the post-employment health care benefit and the completeness of the accounts receivables. Madam Speaker, the Auditor General's opinion was that except for the possible effects of the matters discussed above, these financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Health Services Authority as at 30th of June 2015, and its financial performance and its cash flow for the year then ended in accordance with international financial reporting standards. Madam Speaker, under other matters in the Auditor General's report, it was reported that the authority had breached the Health Services Authority law on cash reserve requirements. Madam Speaker, under sections 7.1 and 18.3c of the law, the authority is required to maintain a cash reserve at a level no less than its estimated expenses for 90 days, which for this period is determined to be $25.9 million. Based on the Auditor General's report, as at the 30th of June 2015, the authority's cash reserve amounted to $6.6 million, and therefore is $19.2 million short in meeting this requirement. The Auditor General's opinion is not qualified in respect of this matter. Madam Speaker, the Health Services Authority can only meet its cash reserve requirements if it is appropriately compensated for the services provided. There is support from all persons and agencies in the implementation of the HSA's payment policy, and it has an effective collection agency acting on its behalf. In January 2016, the Health Services Authority extended its payment policy to the Pharmacy Department in an effort to improve collections. The policy was already enforced for elective surgeries in the operating theater and will be introduced on a phased basis in other departments. The challenge remains with the authority to provide quality health care to residents in an environment where the costs of health care continue to rise and the difficulty in collecting from self-pay patients, underinsured, or the uninsured. Madam Speaker, In closing, I would like to publicly thank the board and management of the Health Services Authority for their hard work and perseverance in producing these annual reports and responding to the significant matters raised by the Auditor General that form the basis of the qualified opinion. I invite members of this Honourable House and the public to review these reports in detail. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Financial statements of Segregated Insurance Fund of the Cayman Islands for the year ended 30th of June 2016, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Premier, Minister of Home Affairs, Health and Culture.
Once again recognize the Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the financial statements of the Segregated Insurance Fund of the Cayman Islands for the year ended 30th of June 2016.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Premier wish to speak further?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Briefly.
Please proceed.
Madam Speaker, in accordance with Section 11(4) of the Health Insurance Commission Law 2010 revision, I am pleased today to lay before this Honourable House the audited financial statements of the Segregated Insurance Fund for the year ended 30th of June 2016. The Segregated Insurance Fund was established under the Health Insurance Commission Law 2003. The Health Insurance Commission took over administration of the fund from the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority on the 1st of January 2006, and its role is to manage the collection of all sums due to the Segregated Insurance Fund. The fund's primary function is to assist the Cayman Islands government to defray the costs incurred for providing treatment to indigent persons. Contributions to the fund are received from approved insurance providers in accordance with Section 5 of the Health Insurance Regulations, or I should say in accordance with the Regulation 5 of the Health Insurance Regulations 2013 revision, which require that all fees collected by the Health Insurance Commission be paid into the Segregated Insurance Fund. An approved insurer collects a monthly $10 contribution from individual policyholders with no dependents. Those with dependents pay $20 per month to the fund. Health insurance providers then submit these collections to the Health Insurance Commission in its capacity as fund administrator. The current list of insurance companies contributing to the fund is as follows: Aetna Life and Casualty, BAF, British Caymanian, Cayman First, Cayman Plus, Cineco, Generali Worldwide, Guardian General, and Pan American International. During the 2015-16 fiscal year, Colonial Medical, British Caymanian, provided coverage for the largest number of persons, followed by Cineco, and then Cayman First. Also, the total number of persons with health insurance in the Cayman Islands was 58,824 souls for the year ended 30th of June 2016. Madam Speaker, this represents 96% of the population with health insurance coverage. Madam Speaker, the Segregated Insurance Fund collected $4,598,240 from approved insurance providers for the period ended 30th of June 2016. Operating expenses for this period totaled $9,000, and the amount of $4,589,240 was deposited to the Executive Revenue account of the Ministry of Health. The Auditor General has completed the audit of the Segregated Insurance Fund and has provided the financial statements duly certified pursuant to Section 12A of the Health Insurance Commission Law 2010 revision. The audit opinion for the period was an unqualified opinion, which means that the information contained within the financial statements can be relied upon by the user. This opinion has been consistent with the opinion received by the Auditor General's Office for the past few years. Madam Speaker, I invite members of this Honourable House and the public to review this report in detail.
Financial statements of the Segregated Insurance Fund of the Cayman Islands for the year ended 30th of June 2015, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Premier and Minister of Home Affairs, Health and Culture.
Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Perhaps we should have done these the other way around, but so be it. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House segregated financial statements of the Segregated Insurance Fund of the Cayman Islands for the year ended 30th of June 2015.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Mayor wish to speak to this report as well?
Again, briefly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Segregated Insurance Fund was, I've just said that, was established under the Health Insurance Commission Law 2003. I'm going to skip most of that, Madam Speaker, because I've just covered it, what I've said in relation to the establishment of the fund, in relation to the first financial statements laid are relevant to this as well. I will simply, Madam Speaker, address what the statements actually demonstrate. Madam Speaker, during the 2014-2015 fiscal year, Colonial Medical, which is British Caymanian, provided coverage for the largest number of persons, followed by Cineco and then Cayman First. Also, the total number of persons with health insurance in the Cayman Islands was 55,456 for the year ended 30th of June 2015. And this, Madam Speaker, represented 94% of the population with health insurance coverage. So over the course of the ensuing year, the coverage actually increased by 2%. Madam Speaker, the Segregated Insurance Fund collected $4,256,020 from approved insurance providers for the period ended 30th of June 2015. Operating expenses for this period total $9,000, and the amount of $4,247,020 was deposited to the Executive Revenue Account of the Ministry of Health. The Auditor General completed the audit of the Segregated Insurance Fund and provided the financial statements duly certified pursuant to Section 12A of the Health Insurance Commission Law. The audit opinion for the period was an unqualified opinion, which means that the information contained within the financial statements can be relied upon by the user. Madam Speaker, I invite members of this Honourable House and the public to review the report in detail.
The Legal Aid Regulations 2016 to be laid on the table by the Honourable Attorney General, ex officio member responsible for the portfolio of legal affairs.
I recognize the Honourable Attorney General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I crave leave of this Honourable House to lay on the table the Legal Aid Regulations 2016.
Leave so ordered. Does the Honourable AG wish to speak to it?
Madam Speaker, there is an accompanying motion which will come later. Motion was submitted, and which I'm hoping to deal with at the appropriate time, and I will speak to the matter then with the legal of the House. Thank you.
2013-14 Supplementary Annual Plan and Estimates, 2014-15 Supplementary Annual Plan and Estimates, 2015-16 Supplementary Plan and Estimates to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Finance and Economic Development.
I recognize the Honourable Minister responsible for Finance and Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the Supplementary Annual Plan and Estimates documents for the Government of the Cayman Islands with respect to the financial years ended 30th of June 2014 through to 30th of June 2016.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Minister of Finance wish to speak to these three reports?
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker.
Please proceed.
Madam Speaker, honourable members will recall that shortly after taking office in 2013, the current government brought supplementary appropriation bills that tidied up supplementary expenditures that were incurred by the two previous government administrations during the 4-year period from May 2009 to May 2013. Madam Speaker, the process to obtain approval from the Legislative Assembly for supplementary expenditures incurred during the 4-year period with respect to financial years ended 30th of June 2010 through 30th of June 2013 was carried out in September 2013. And Madam Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order 67, subsection 1, the 3 supplementary annual plan and estimate documents that have just been tabled stand referred to Finance Committee. As the estimates will be considered in Finance Committee at the conclusion of the second reading of the Associated Supplementary Appropriation Bill, I wish to make only brief remarks with respect to the documents that have just been tabled. The supplementary annual plan and estimates that have just been tabled are all structured in the same way. Part A of the documents contain changes to the appropriation law for a specific financial year. Part A of the documents also shows, in respect to the specific appropriation being changed, the following information. Number 1, the amount of the original approved appropriation for a particular budget item. Number 2, the amount of the supplementary appropriation proposed for the particular budget item. And number 3, the revised appropriation amount for the particular budget item. Part B of the document shows the amount of the supplementary appropriations for particular items in the appropriation law for that particular financial year. Details in Part B of the documents correspond to the schedule to the supplementary appropriation bill for the particular financial year concerned. It is also important to note, Madam Speaker, that whilst the word supplementary is used frequently in the documents, the changes to the appropriations do not just involve expenditure increases, but the documents also clearly show reductions to expenditures. Part C of the documents show the financial statements for the financial year. Madam Speaker, the supplementary annual plan and estimate documents tabled today represent supplementary expenditure for which the government seeks the Legislative Assembly's approval. Madam Speaker, the routine of a current government bringing supplementary appropriation bills to the Legislative Assembly at the start of its term with respect to supplementary expenditure matters incurred by a previous government is a routine that should be discontinued because it does not represent good fiscal management, transparency, nor accountability. Accordingly, the government is now bringing supplementary appropriation annual plan and estimates documents and supplementary appropriation bills to this Honorable House during its current term, rather than waiting until the next session of the Legislative Assembly meeting. This change represents an improvement to past practice, and it is not being said to boast, Madam Speaker. Rather, it is being said because it represents better fiscal management, transparency, and accountability, which any government should strive for. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Electricity Regulatory Authority Annual Report, 30th of June 2016, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Planning, Lands, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure.
I recognize the Honourable Minister responsible for infrastructure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the annual report of the Electricity Regulatory Authority up to June 30th, 2016. And Madam Speaker, just to say the report, I would recommend members to peruse it. It is straightforward and self-explanatory, so I don't need to speak to it.
The report has been ordered to be laid. Next report, please.
National Conservation Council Annual Report 2016 to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Financial Services, Commerce and Environment.
Recognize the Honourable Minister responsible for the environment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and good morning.
Morning.
I rise to lay on the table of this Honourable House, with your permission, Madam Speaker, the annual report for the National Conservation Council for the year ended 30th June 2016.
Permission granted. Does the Honourable Minister wish to speak further to the report?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Council held meetings quarterly on the following dates: the 25th of August 2015, 23rd November 2015, 24th February 2016, and 18th of May 2016. All meetings were held at the Government Administration Building and, as prescribed by law, were open to the public. Further details of these meetings, such as notices, agendas, and minutes, were published on the Department of Environment website in accordance with statutory requirements and the Council's Policy and Procedures Manual. Madam Speaker, the National Conservation Law was brought into force in stages. The first commencement was on the 9th of September 2014, where parts 1 and 2 and Schedule 2 came into force on the 12th of September 2014. Parts 3, 4, and 6, Section 50, and Schedules 1, 3, and 4 came into force on Earth Day on the 22nd of April 2015. Part 5 and Part 7, Madam Speaker, of the law remained uncommenced during this reporting period, but continued to be a primary focus for the Council, the Department of Environment, and the Ministry of Environment, in particular in relation to the licensing of various activities, for example, the use of fish pots, which were previously managed by the Marine Conservation Law, but are now managed under Part 5 of this law. Madam Speaker, these preparations culminated in the approval in May 2016 of the following. A, the National Conservation Council License and Permit Directives 2016, with the delegation of administration of routine applications for grants of permits and licenses to the Department of Environment on the Council's behalf. B, a draft species conservation plan for fish to be issued for public consultation, with a public consultation or comment period of more than 2 months, which was twice the minimum period required under Section 17 of the law. C, in order to preserve existing licensing practices during the consultation and adoption period for the Species Conservation Plan for fish, an interim directive was issued and published in the Gazette, directing that the take of any of the fish species listed in Schedule 1, Part 1 and Part 2 of the NCL with a spear gun, seine net, gill net, or fish pot is prohibited without a license, and taking effect immediately upon the coming into force of Parts 5 and 7 of the National Conservation Law and the repeal of the Marine Conservation Law. D, approval of the Council's endorsement of the National Conservation General Regulations 2016, and E, approval of the Council's endorsement of the National Conservation Fees and Forms Regulations 2016. Madam Speaker, in relation to Part 7 of the law, guidance notes for the use of the Environmental Protection Fund, as well as a directive for the carrying out of environmental impact assessments, were also approved, at the May 2016 general meeting of the Council and subsequently published in the Gazette. Madam Speaker, the Council engaged the community and government in a number of conservation-related matters. The 5 most notable engagements were, firstly, the DOE's proposal for the Enhanced Marine Protection Area System. This public consultation on the DOE's nomination of enhancements to Cayman's Marine Park System of protected areas took place between the 26th of August and 18th December 2015 in all districts, with presentations made by the Director and staff of the DOE. The Council reviewed all written submissions along with the DOE's recommendations for amendments to the original nomination in order to address and adopt the public feedback consistent with the original goals, which was to achieve between 40 and 50% coverage of protected areas with simplification of the zones and enhancements of no-take areas. The approved amended nomination of enhancements to the island's marine park system of protected areas was delivered to the Minister of Environment on March 2016 with a presentation by the Council to caucus also in March 2016. It is now for Cabinet to make a decision on the amended nomination of enhancements to Cayman's marine park system of protected areas. A second significant engagement, Madam Speaker, as mentioned above, a fish species conservation plan was received from the Department of Environment and approved for issue to the public for feedback. Thirdly, Madam Speaker, the 7 Mile Beach Marine Park. In March 2016, the Council wrote to government in relation to a Coastal Works permit application by Dart Realty for permission to carry out site investigations with a view to possible larger scale removal of beach rock at Long Point on 7 Mile Beach. The Council wished to make its views available to Cabinet as approval of Coastal Works in Cayman is reserved to the Cabinet. Madam Speaker, the Council's position was in opposition to this preliminary investigation and ultimately removal of the beach rock. Madam Speaker, the 4th significant area of engagement was in line with one of the recommendations of Project Future in December 2015, which was the Council approved and provided recommendations to Cabinet via the Ministry of Planning that 13 of the 69 parcels identified by caucus with potential for divestment by the Crown should be reserved for their environmental value. The last very significant engagement, Madam Speaker, was that the Council also participated in a workshop held in November 2015, facilitated by the Nature Conservancy, to build capacity among stakeholders, including legal professionals, the Planning Department, the Department of Environment, and the Department of Lands and Survey. Madam Speaker, the Section 35 of the NCL deals with the importation, introduction, and release in any part of the islands of live or variable specimens of an alien or genetically altered species. This section has far-reaching implications for not only the conservation and protection of the natural environment, but also public health and sustainable agricultural and horticultural practices. Madam Speaker, an alien plant importation advisory committee was formed in June 2015, the purpose of which was to prepare a memorandum of understanding among the Council, DOE, and the Department of Agriculture for consultation on alien plant import licensing. While the Council prepared the draft directives, the DOE continued to advise the Department of Agriculture on the importation of alien plants species, and also animals principally for the pet trade into the islands. Madam Speaker, the DOE also acted on behalf of the Cayman Islands CITES Scientific Authority. The CITES Scientific Authority was formed under the Endangered Species Trade and Transport Law. and advises the CITES Management Authority, that is the Ministry of Environment, on the importation of alien species into the islands. The initial assessment of the work needed to develop draft directives identified the need for the DOE and the Council to develop a systematic assessment in relation to existing wild populations, including proposed introductions that might cause harm to any of the natural resources of the islands, and procedures for regulating and controlling such populations and introductions. Such a systematic assessment was subsequently deemed to go beyond the capacity of the DOE in terms of staff availability to devote the time and resources required to the project during this reporting period. On the 18th of May 2016, Madam Speaker, the Council considered an application by the Mosquito Research and Control Unit under Section 35(2) of the law for permission to import 1.65 kilograms of genetically modified Aedes aegypti yellow fever mosquito eggs in a maximum of 12 shipments at approximately monthly intervals for the purpose of rearing and release in a limited trial for a mosquito population suppression project to be conducted in West Bay as a potential first phase of a rolling Aedes aegypti mosquito control program. Madam Speaker, wild female mosquitoes are the primary vector responsible for transmitting several diseases such as yellow fever, dengue, and Zika, which, as we all know, can affect humans. The role of the Council was to assess whether the activities contemplated by the MRCU application would constitute a threat to the biodiversity of the islands. The Council conducted intensive research into the prior history of research trials into the efficacy of the genetically modified Aedes aegypti mosquito and current best practices for assessment and evaluation of genetically modified mosquitoes. Madam Speaker, in granting approval of the MRCU application, the Council summarized specific reasons for assessing the risk to the biodiversity of the Cayman Islands. Among conditions attached to the permit, the MRCU was required to continue public outreach throughout the study period and to provide a report to the Council of progress as at June 30th, 2016, and at the conclusion of the project. Madam Speaker, the Invasive Species Committee remained focused on the green iguana problem during this 2015-16 reporting period. A green iguana removal plan, which had been prepared on behalf of the committee by the Department of Environment's Terrestrial Unit, was given preliminary Council approval on the 13th of January 2016 and ratified at the general meeting of 18th of February 2016. The committee's goal for the sister islands were biosecurity and eradication. For Grand Cayman, the directive was for a small-scale cull in order to test our management options. The year-end report of the committees that is included in the annual report, including utilization of the appropriation from the Environmental Protection Fund, voted for assessment and a test culling pilot project. Madam Speaker, the Climate Change Committee was confirmed at the general meeting on the 23rd of September 2015. The Council adopted the committee's recommendations to give support to Cabinet's decision to request the UK government to extend the ratification of a second commitment period of the Kyoto Protocol to the Cayman Islands. In November 2015, the committee produced a climate change policy development memorandum for the Council, which was shared with government. The committee also continued to provide input into the National Energy Policy Review through the Department of Environment, which sits on the panel. Madam Speaker, in terms of outreach and education, in regards to public awareness and education about the Council and its responsibilities and duties, the Council continued to develop its website and social media presence and is striving to make the community more aware of the need for protection and conservation of our natural environment, whether marine or terrestrial. Madam Speaker, the Council's powers and duties relating to environmental impact assessments were not in effect in the reporting period. However, the framework which forms the basis of the draft regulations was used to conduct the Georgetown Cruise Berthing Facility EIA, or Environmental Impact Assessment, during the previous reporting period. The Council, during the previous reporting period, determined that it would withhold comment on the EIA process until it had reached a stage at which the Council, under Part 7 of the law, would normally provide its views on the environmental statement. On that basis, the Council issued 4 commentaries after the issue of the Environmental Assessment Board review of the draft environmental statement. The first commentary period supported the conclusions and recommendations of the Environmental Assessment Board, and subsequent commentaries responded to elements of the continuation in the post-environmental statement phase of the project. Copies of these commentaries are available under the section, National Conservation Council section of the DOE's website. Madam Speaker, in relation to council expenses, the budget for council for the year ended 30th June 2016 was $34,100.68, made up of the following: 2015-16 council expenses, meetings for 12 months, $25,112.68. The same period, marine protected areas designation and management plans expenses and species conservation plans expenses was $8,988. As at 30th June 2016, expenses dispersed on behalf of council were only $25,878.23, mainly for council members' stipends and air travel expenses to the for the Sister Islands member. Madam Speaker, recipients, in relation to the Environmental Protection Fund, recipients of EPF appropriations have provided information to the Council to enable the following reporting to be made. At the conclusion of the budget debate on June 19, 2015, it was announced that the Standing Finance Committee had approved the appropriation of CI 5.18 million to be dispersed from the fund. Further details of the disbursements from the fund are included in the appendices of this annual report. According to the government's 2015-16 or 2016-17 annual plan and estimates, the notes to the forecast financial statements for 2016-17 and the notes, the fund is expected to have a balance of approximately $59 million by December 2017. Madam Speaker, the appropriations approved of $6,750,000 from the EPF for the 18-month period up to December 2017 included a stingray study, a traffic calming proposal for the Sister Islands rock iguana, Cayman powered amnesty project, green iguana control, conservation land purchases, and emergency coral reef restoration. Madam Speaker, looking ahead, with the commencement of the full commencement of the National Conservation Law, the Council will be turning to articulating policy for long and short-term goals and objectives. It is expected that such a policy document will be an outcome of a Council retreat to be held in October 2017. Besides expected repetitive objectives, special or specific objectives that have already been established for the financial year 2016-17 are: firstly, continuing lobbying for approval of the enhanced marine protected areas. Secondly, review of management plans for the marine protected areas. Thirdly, creation of first terrestrial protected areas from the 2016 nominations procedure, including protection of suitable crown land. Fourthly, production of directives for the importation and release of alien or genetically altered species, including policies for assessment and evaluation of risk. Fifthly, creation, consultation, and implementation of 3 species conservation plans. Sixth, outreach to government entities, starting with those most likely to be impacted by the Section 41 duty to consult on environmental matters. Seventh, consider issues related to the take and possession of specimens of protected species by individuals and institutions, leading to the creation of a suite of directives to regulate these activities with a view to controlling unsuitable take while minimizing impact on sustainable use. Eighth, provide input to the review of the national climate change policy. Ninth, explore and activate outreach and education opportunities with conservation partners. Madam Speaker, in measuring the achievement of the prior year's objectives, the Council notes that although the number of species conservation plans fell short of expectations, the Council looks forward to receiving more plans in the coming period. Madam Speaker, as the Minister for the Environment, I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank all of the Council members for their hard work and unselfish dedication and service to the people of these islands through their work on the National Conservation Council. And I commend this report to this Honourable House and indeed the members of the public. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Cayman Islands Development Bank Annual Report, 30th of June 2016, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Financial Services, Commerce and Environment.
Honourable Minister for Financial Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to lay on the table of this Honourable House, with your permission, Madam Speaker, the Cayman Islands Development Bank annual report on audited financial statements for the year ended 30th June 2016.
So ordered. Does Honourable Minister wish to expound further?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will be a little bit more brief on this occasion. Madam Speaker, starting with the audited financial statements, first and foremost, it is my pleasure to advise members of this Honourable House and the public that during the fiscal year, which ended on the 30th of June 2016, under the stewardship of the Board of Directors and management of the bank, and with of course, with the ongoing support of this administration, we are proud to confirm that the CIDB has returned to a profitable position, an achievement not seen or recorded in the bank in the last 12 years. Madam Speaker, as of June 30th, 2016, the total assets of the bank stood at $39,029,246, a decrease of $1,301,224 over the June 30th, 2015 net figure of $38,923,045. The loan portfolio represented approximately 70% of the bank's assets as of June 30th, 2016, which was unchanged from the prior period. Liabilities decreased by $1,707,863, or 4.7% over the year ended June 30th, 2015, due to amortized payments of a loan and reduction in funds held for disbursement of scholarship funds. Liabilities as at June 30th, 2016 stood at $32,381,143. Madam Speaker, total income for the year ended June 30th, 2016 amounted to $2,084,602 compared to $2,260,306 at 30th June 2015. Both amounts include $526,317 received from the Cayman Islands government for services provided. CIDB acts as agent for the government in respect of the Hurricane Relief Program, the Education Council and the Education Council scholarship funds. Currently, CIDB is economically dependent upon government to meet its operational expenditure. Despite the growth in new loans, interest income decreased to $1,464,823 in year ended June 30th, 2016, compared to $1,657,362 in the year ended June 30th, 2015. This decline, Madam Speaker, is attributed to an overall shrinking of the loan portfolio. The two new loan programs brought a growth in portfolio of $1.8 million. However, these loans did not get advanced until the third quarter of operations, and as such, would not have impacted annualized interest income. The Auditor General's report, Madam Speaker, is one of an unqualified or clean opinion on the financial position of the CIDB as at 30th June 2016. As of 30th June 2016, the loan portfolio of CIDB stood at $33,187,855 before loan loss provision of $4,015,329, compared to the loan portfolio as at the year ended 30th June 2015 of $35,014,710, before loan loss provision of $5,078,946, which represents, Madam Speaker, a net decrease in the loan portfolio from 30th June 2015. Madam Speaker, for the fiscal year ended 30th June 2016, CIDB approved 178 loans totaling $2,306,482. The new loan program to assist civil servants and public servants with liquidating high interest rate debt was widely accepted and a success. The bank earmarked $2 million for the program, and the funds have been fully utilized. The small business loan program was designed to provide financing for existing small businesses that have been in operation for at least 2 years and who required additional capital to grow. This program has not contributed to the growth in the business loan portfolio, as it was not developed for startup loans for entrepreneurs. However, the program did spur some commercial financial institutions into relaxing some of their lending criteria in order to retain their customers who viewed CIDB as an attractive alternative. In other words, Madam Speaker, a very positive impact because of competition. The bulk of the bank's student loans are essentially granted to fund shortfalls from awarded scholarships. Students are encouraged to attend local universities to obtain their associate degrees prior to finishing bachelor programs overseas in order to keep overall tuition costs down. More students are availing themselves of the local resources for cost reasons and also to improve on their grade point average in order to be considered for local and overseas scholarships. The majority of loans classified under other loans were insurance loans. The bank had to put in place in respect of homeowners insurance, as some customers were unwilling or unable to pay the premiums. Madam Speaker, although the bank still experiences issues with loan delinquencies, the matter is significantly improving, with a 5% reduction in delinquencies during the fiscal period. The majority of these delinquencies are mainly attributable to loans underwritten under outdated policies and the high-risk nature of the loans, which were granted previously. However, a new credit policy was adopted by the CIDB in August 2012 with the aim of turning the corner on loan delinquencies for the bank. So the issues related to the period prior to 2012. Madam Speaker, looking forward to the future of the bank's return to profitability, which has been the result of improved efficiencies, effective policies, and a dedicated team, is also testament to what has been achieved under this administration, which has fully supported the bank. I can also state, Madam Speaker, that it is this government's intention to shortly further pay down some of the debt in respect of CIDB, which will only strengthen the bank's balance sheet. Madam Speaker, there is great demand for relief from high interest rate commercial bank loans, and with increased support from government and adherence to its new credit policy, the bank can develop the performance of its loan portfolio. It has also been identified that intervention is needed to develop savings habits in potential customers, increase awareness and benefits of making smarter purchases, and highlighting the importance of education and the importance of a good credit history. To this end, the bank has reached out to the Education Ministry to provide workshops and or counseling to senior high school students who are those who are viewed as the future customers, potential future customers of the bank. Madam Speaker, the bank's key objectives for the fiscal year 2016-17 are to A, increase its portfolio with new business loan programs, B, to expand support for the student loan program with assistance from the Ministry of Education, C, provide financial counseling for existing customers, and D, enhance CIDB staff development training in order to maintain high levels of efficiency and effectiveness of operations. Madam Speaker, this concludes my presentation on the Cayman Islands Development Bank's annual report and financial statements for the year ended 30th June 2016, and I now commend this report and these financial statements to this Honourable House and the members of the public. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The Development and Planning Amendment Regulations 2017 to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Planning, Lands, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure.
I recognize the Honourable Minister responsible for planning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the Development and Planning Amendment Regulations 2017.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Minister wish to speak to it?
Madam Speaker, there is a government motion which I have to bring later on during this meeting, and at that time I will be able to speak to the details of these regulations.
Thank you.
Government of the Cayman Islands, Children and Youth Services Foundation Annual Financial Statements for the year ended 30th of June 2016 to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Community Affairs, Youth and Sports.
Recognize the Honourable Minister of Youth.
Madam Speaker and honourable members of the Legislative Assembly, I am pleased to lay on the table of this Honourable House a report and audited financial statements for the Children and Youth Services Foundation, better known as KEYS, for the year ended June 30, 2016, thereby bringing KEYS financial statements up to date. As members are aware, the KEYS Foundation provides caring and therapeutic programs for children.
Does the Honourable Minister wish to lay it? So ordered. Recognize the Honourable Minister to speak further on the paper.
We're in a rush here, Madam Speaker. As members are aware, the KEYS Foundation provides caring and therapeutic programs for children, boys and girls who have experienced some trauma in their lives, whether they are placed on care order or youth rehabilitation orders. Its operations include the management and operation of Francis Borden Girls Home, a 24-hour residential facility for youth who require care due to being deemed in need of care and protection, and girls exhibiting offending behaviors that have been court-ordered, as well as the Bonaventure Boys Home, including the Phoenix House, a 24-hour residential facility for youth who have been remanded or committed by the courts for youth rehabilitative services. Madam Speaker, KEYS continues to assist the government in meeting its legal obligations under the Children's Law 2012 revision and the Youth Justice Law 2005 revision. Due to the complex issues that at-risk youth experience, KEYS continues to reevaluate its therapeutic programs and expand its services to ensure that appropriate residential treatment is available for those boys and girls who are not able to remain with their families. Keys Foundation has prepared financial statements which have been audited by the Office of the Auditor General on the trust activities and transactions for the year ended 30 June 2016 as required by the Section 52.5 of the Public Management and Finance Law 2013 revision. It is important to note that the financial statements were accepted and approved by the Keys Board of Directors on the 26th of October 2016. The Keys Foundation, as I said, has received an unqualified opinion on the financial statements for the financial year ended June 30, 2016. Madam Speaker, as can be seen on page 6, the Foundation has assets totaling of $1,585,176 at June 30, 2016, the majority of which are made up of current assets of $1,111,712, comprising mostly of $205,331 in cash and cash equivalents and $881,013 in accounts receivable. It should be noted, Madam Speaker, that the government provided the original buildings for Bonaventure Boys Home and Francis Borden Home at no capital cost to the Foundation, so the buildings are not included as property for the Foundation on these financial statements. However, as many are aware, in February 2016, the Keys Foundation officially opened its expanded facility at the Francis Borden Children's Home, enabling them to separate boys and girls who were in need of care and protection. This project was made possible through generous donations from the private sector and a testament that the private sector, community service groups, and the government can work together to generously and quickly provide for the needs of the people of the Cayman Islands. As at June 30, 2016, the Foundation has a total of $89,137 in current liabilities, the majority of which are, sorry, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Sarge. The majority of which are $49,317 payable to vendors for operating the Foundation and $19,058 in employee entitlements comprised entirely of accrual for annual leave. Madam Speaker, and members of the Legislative Assembly are aware that the Keys Foundation is owned by the Cayman Islands government, which provides the majority of the grant income received by the Keys Foundation. Therefore, the Foundation's total operating revenue for the year ended June 30, 2016 was $2,692,903, which comprised mainly of the following: government grant of $2,514,513 and donations of $176,390. The Keys Foundation's total expenses were $2,419,997. This marked an overall net income of $272,906 for the financial year ended June 30, 2016. Madam Speakers and members, the tabling of the Keys Foundation accounts for the year ending the 30 June 2016 brings them up to date with their financial reporting requirements. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Keys Foundation for ensuring that these accounts were tabled in a timely manner. Madam Speaker and members of the Legislative Assembly, I thank you for your indulgence, and the accounts are there to be reviewed for anyone for further interest. Thank you.
Annual report, Cayman Turtle Farm 1983 Limited for the year ended 30th of June 2016, and the financial statements of Cayman Turtle Farm 1983 Limited 30th of June 2016 to be laid on the table by the Honorable Deputy Premier, Minister of District Administration, Tourism and Transport.
Recognize Honorable Deputy Premier.
Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on this table of this Honorable House the annual report, Cayman Turtle Farm 1983 Limited, for the year ended 30th of June 2016, and the financial statements of Cayman Turtle Farm 1983 Limited, June 30th, 2016.
So ordered. Does Honorable Deputy Premier wish to speak further?
Yes, just briefly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in accordance with Section 52.5 of the Public Management and Finance Law 2013 revision, I'm pleased today to place before this Honorable House the annual report and audited financial statements of the Cayman Turtle Farm 1983 Limited for the fiscal year ended 30th of June 2016. Madam Speaker, Cayman Turtle Farm Limited is a 100% government-owned company established in 21st April 1983 when the government purchased a company named Cayman Turtle Farm Limited from its private owners. That company's predecessor was a private venture named Mariculture Limited that began in 1968. The company now trades under two different new brands. Cayman Turtle Farm Center, Island Wildlife Encounter, is principally engaged in the conservation and research of sea turtles, providing a high-quality, land-based visitor attraction featuring sea turtles, indigenous and regional birds, and other island wildlife. Cayman Turtle Products is principally engaged in captive breeding and farming of green turtle to supply the local market with turtle meat products. Madam Speaker, in terms of revenue, the tourist attraction business, which also includes a bar and restaurant and gift shop on site, generates some 85% of the company's total revenues. Members of this Honorable House are aware that the company operates in Northwest Point, West Bay, in close proximity to several other visitor attractions, such as Dolphin Discovery, the Cayman Motor Museum, Tortuga Rum Cake Outlet, Crack Kunk, and a popular shore dive site. The operations of the company are governed by the Board of Directors and regulated under various laws, regulations, departments, and statutory authorities of the Cayman Islands government. And Madam Speaker, I think it's safe to say that it's the anchor for West Bay tourism. Madam Speaker, the 2016 audited financial statements show that the gross margin for the year ended 30th of June 2016 was $5,836,000, which was $690,733 better than the previous year. There was a net loss of $6 million approximate, which was an improvement of $807,065 compared with the prior year. The company had total assets of $32 million and total liabilities of $18,600,000. Madam Speaker, in regard to the financial statements that accompany the annual report, this was an unqualified audit opinion by the Auditor General, and KPMG signed off 28th of October 2016. Madam Speaker, the Auditor General and KPMG found that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the company as at June 30th, 2016, and its financial performance and its cash flows for the year ended in accordance with international financial reporting standards. This is, of course, a lot of detail and analysis in this very comprehensive annual report and if the notes to the financial statements. So I don't intend, Madam Speaker, to speak about every one of those. But there are a few points and brief updates that I believe are worthy of mention. As mentioned in Note 11, financial statement, the equity injection recorded for the year was $9 million. This amount was approximately $504,000 less than the prior year. A combined total of approximately $4.6 million was applied to the loan payments, Madam Speaker. The sovereign debt being paid off by the Turtle Farm. $4.6 million was applied to the loan. Approximately $700,000 was applied to capital expense. The amount used to subsidize the cash shortfall was $2.4 million. The schedule of income and expenses in Note 19, page 34 and 35, the financial statements show that the sum of the main revenue streams, which are tour admissions, retail merchandise sales, food and beverage, and turtle meat sales, showed an overall increase of approximately 16%. These were excellent improvements, and in revenues and contribution from the company's retail merchandise business, this line of business saw revenues increase by 27%. On the 13th of March 2016, the company added to this line of business a gift shop at a kiosk at the Royal Watler Terminal, which has proven to be very popular with visitors and has commercial success for the company. Madam Speaker, it is also interesting to note that revenues from turtle meat sales increased by 29%, underscoring the obvious fact that local demand for turtle meat shows no signs of diminishing anytime in the foreseeable future. The reality is that if the supply of meat and increased demand were not being produced by the farm, the demand is not going to disappear, but rather it would be unsustainable pressure to take turtles from a limited population in the wild around our islands. Therefore, the captive breeding and harvesting functions are fundamental necessities to the company's conservation efforts aimed at maintaining and growing the population of sea turtles in the wild. Madam Speaker, in regard to conservation efforts, I'm pleased to report that during the financial year, the company has been able to lift the moratorium on turtle releases that it imposed upon itself in 2013, while it upgraded the pre-release protocols and arranged for testing at an independent laboratory overseas. The company resumed turtle releases in May 2016, in addition to the releases of head-started turtles in June 2016. The company also launched an innovative program of egg translocations in which captive bred eggs are placed into man-made nests on suitable beaches and hatch out and emerge into the sea. Dozens of visitors were delighted with being able to observe the hatchlings emerging from these nests and making their way to the sea. The company was able to use these events as opportunities to educate attendees in regard to turtle conservation. Included in the liabilities shown on page 5 was a remaining bond debt of $12,900,000. Further details of the bond debt are shown in Note 8 and 19. The principal amount of remaining debt decreased by $3.5 million. Remaining debt from the bond bank totals $14.4 million. Madam Speaker, in its role as an employer, the company has successful hiring and developing local people of an authorized headcount of 90 full-time equivalents. As the financial year ended the 30th of June 2016, there were only 3 employees on work permits at the farm. Highlighting the high ratings of guest experience that the company provides this year, the company was awarded TripAdvisor Certificate of Excellence 2016, repeating an achievement from previous 2015. The company has also been awarded Distinction of Expert's Choice by Trip Expert. Madam Speaker, the company's determined efforts for the past several years in progressively improving its governance, business controls, and financial records has resulted in the company achieving its 30th June 2016 financial statements audit, an exemplary outcome, and unqualified audit opinion with no management letter points. Madam Speaker, in closing, I would like to thank the board, management, and staff of Cayman Turtle Farm Limited for their hard work in producing these excellent results and this very comprehensive report. I invite members of this honorable House and the public to review the annual report and accompanying audited financial statements. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Port Authority of the Cayman Islands Annual Report for the 2015 financial year, to be laid on the table by the Honorable Deputy Premier, Minister of District Administration, Tourism and Transport.
Recognize the Honorable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this honorable House the financial statements from the year 2015 for the Port Authority of the Cayman Islands.
So ordered. Does the Honorable Minister wish to speak to the report?
Just briefly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the net profits for the Port Authority, the financials ended 30th of June 2015, was $349,696. Madam Speaker, the 2015 audited financial statements show income for the year. Madam Speaker, this is what I wanted to just say. The audited financial statements of the authority includes the Auditor General's opinion. The financial statements have been audited by the Auditor General, and I'm delighted to report that an unqualified audit opinion has been issued on the June 2015 financials. The Auditor General states that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Port Authority of the Cayman Islands as of 30th of June 2015 and its financial performance and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with international financial reporting standards. Madam Speaker, in closing, I would like to thank the board and management of the Port Authority of the Cayman Islands for their hard work in producing these audited financial statements and the results, and invite members, the Honorable House, and the public to review the report in detail. Thank you.
Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport, annual financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2016, to be laid on the table by the Honorable Deputy Premier, Minister of District Administration, Tourism and Transport.
Recognize the Honorable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table the financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2016 for the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism, and Transport.
So ordered. Does Honorable Deputy Premier wish to speak further?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just briefly to say that this is an unqualified audit opinion by the Auditor General, signed off on the 18th of November 2016. Again, the Auditor General stated, in my opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism, and Transport as of 30th of June 2016, and its financial performance and its cash flows for the year ended in accordance with international public sector accounting standards. Madam Speaker, the Ministry is extremely pleased to have received this unqualified opinion and is proud of the work the Ministry team, led by Chief Officer and Acting Chief Financial Officer team, undertook to achieve an unqualified audit. So I take this opportunity to thank the Ministry staff and the Office of the Auditor General for the hard work that has gone into producing audited financial statements. The Ministry of District Administration, Tourism, the fiscal year ended 30th of June 2016. I also invite members of this Honorable House and the public to review the reports in detail. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions to Honourable Ministers and members of the Cabinet. The elected member for Northside to ask the Honourable Minister of Planning, Lands, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure. Question number 28.
Recognize the Honorable Premier for the suspension of 23, 7, and 8 of the standing orders. Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move suspension of the relevant standing order in order that the business of that question time may commence and continue after the hour of 11 o'clock.
The question is that standing order 23, 7, and 8 be suspended to allow question time to commence and continue beyond hour of 11 a.m. All those in favor, please say aye. Against, no. The ayes have it. Accordingly, standing order 23, 7, and 8 is hereby suspended. I recognize the honourable member from the District of Northside.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to ask Honourable Minister of Planning, Lands, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure the following question. Can the Honourable Minister give an update on the gazettal of the two farm roads in Northside.
Honorable Minister responsible for infrastructure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the answer. I can confirm, Madam Speaker, that a single request from the Honourable Member for Northside for the gazettal of 3 new public roads in Northside was received by my ministry in September of last year. Although the question from the Honourable Member only referenced 2 of these roads, I believe that it would be appropriate and that very helpful if I provide an update on all 3. The first request, and I'm noting, Madam Speaker, that there was probably a reason for one being differentiated, but the gazettal process will be the same, so I'm just including all of them together. The first request is for the gazettal of a new 30-foot public road that will run just about parallel to Rumpoint Drive, but further inland. It would begin at the point where Hutland Road turns east. Running due west, it would follow, where possible, the party boundary of various parcels until it turns due north to connect to Rumpoint Drive in the vicinity of Driftwood Village. The total distance is approximately 3.5 miles. Madam Speaker, the second request is for the gazettal of a new 30-foot public road that would begin in the vicinity of Mr. Willie's farm on Hutland Road, running in a southerly direction for approximately 1.5 miles. Again, where possible, following the party boundary between parcels. The purpose of these 2 proposed public roads, I believe, is to open up lands that are currently landlocked or benefit from pedestrian-only access rights to allow for future development and, more importantly, to allow landowners to have access to the arable land in those areas. The third requested gazettal, Madam Speaker, is for an arterial new public road that will link Bordentown with Rumpoint. The requested route for this begins from the first requested new road that I just described earlier in the vicinity of Driftwood Village, due south through Duck Pond, then connecting with Harvey Stevenson Drive in Bordentown. This is a distance of approximately 3 3/4 of a mile. This road would act as a connector, making it much quicker to travel between Rumpoint and Bordentown. The Honourable Member and others will be aware that all public roads are the responsibility of the National Roads Authority, and the request for the gazettal of the proposed 3 new roads was therefore forwarded to the NRA for its consideration and its recommendations. The NRA, Madam Speaker, will need some more time to assess the topography and the ground conditions of the proposed routes, but has raised some concerns as to the possible effect of the road schemes on the local environment and drawn attention to the requirements of the National Conservation Law. Under Section 41 of the NCL, that is the National Conservation Law, in instances where a government entity, including the Cabinet, is planning or constructing new roads, such actions are deemed an activity trigger as defined under the law. What this means is that consultation with the National Conservation Council is mandatory for all new roads, both planned or to be constructed. The purpose of this with the NCC, that is the National Conservation Council, is to facilitate the integration of environmental considerations into the national decision-making process. And Madam Speaker, the National Conservation Council was consulted on the 1st of February through the Department of Environment. The information that I have to date is that the department will be screening these proposals under the National Conservation Council's Environmental Impact Assessment Directive. This provides for a 21-day time frame within which the department shall produce a screening opinion for the National Conservation Council's consideration. The proposed roads will be screened in accordance with Section 43 of the National Conservation Law in order to determine if an environmental impact assessment will be required. I understand that the department has timetabled the delivery of its screening opinions for consideration by the National Conservation Council at its meeting, which is being held today. But as of yet, I have not had an update on the outcome of that meeting. However, I expect that very shortly. Madam Speaker, the gazettal process does not by any means commit the government to any road construction, and I do not believe that was the purpose of this entire exercise. And my understanding is that the affected landowners are waiving any rights to compensation. I also wish to point out that there would be no compensation due if the gain in value arising from the road scheme exceeds the value of the land taken. Madam Speaker, I want to assure the honourable member and all of us here in this honourable House and for the listening public's benefit that upon receipt of the decision of the National Conservation Council and the technical recommendations of the National Roads Authority, as the Minister responsible for infrastructure, I will certainly consider the requests very carefully and report to Cabinet with my recommendations accordingly.
Are there any supplementaries? I recognize the member from Northside, followed by the member from Georgetown, fifth elected member from Georgetown.
Through you, Madam Speaker, to the Minister responsible. Given the Department of Environment and the National Conservation Council preoccupation with stopping any development in this area, which they have termed the Central Mangrove Wetlands, how much weight is the Minister going to place on what is likely to be a recommendation from the National Conservation Council that these roads not be built, and particularly the highway extension?
Honourable Minister for Infrastructure. Honourable Minister for Infrastructure, you may exercise your discretion to respond, but it's a highly speculative answer. I mean, the member has formulated in his mind what the outcome is, but as you stated, the meeting has not yet concluded.
Madam Speaker, as is my usual style, I certainly am quite prepared to engage because there is nothing in my mind about any hidden agenda. And I hear what the member from Northside is saying because we've had our own meetings, but the member will also recall, and this is just for edification, that I have met with him and some of the other landowners prior to this. I understand for at least the first two proposals that he is talking about that the main reason and rationale behind this whole process that was started quite some time ago and helped propelled by the member for Northside was so that landowners in that area who do not have proper access would be able to get something of the kind of farm roads being built which would give them proper access, that they could utilize the lands for, in the majority, farming purposes. And perhaps years down line, with a farm road having been established, that such roads could be further improved and perhaps other uses being put to the land. That's for the first two roads, which I am terming as farm roads. I want to assure the member that from my perspective, and knowing, not professing to know it all, but I know some of that area by having walked it personally, I certainly see absolutely nothing wrong with the plan that is being put forward of gazetting farm roads. With regards to the connector road, which is proposed from, I think, near Driftwood Village down to Harvest Stevenson Drive, I have to say, Madam Speaker, that it is difficult for me to actually give a firm opinion on that, because I don't really know, except from topographical maps, the lay of the land. And I would much prefer to see the report itself, see what the actual recommendations are, which I will certainly share with the member, to see exactly what is the best way forward and whether any mitigating circumstances might allow for the gazettal to still take place.
Recognize the fifth elected member from Georgetown.
Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of procedure, but you might tell me that this isn't the appropriate time. I just wanted to find out the procedure for all the questions I asked in the last sitting that still yet remain unanswered. There are a considerable number of them that I have not gotten written responses from the last meeting of the LA.
Okay. I believe the member from Northside may have a follow-up supplementary, honourable member, so I'll let that sequence conclude and then I'll revert back to you and you can address that inquiry to the government bench. Honourable member from Northside.
Through you, Madam Speaker, I thank the Minister for that response, and just to inform him that some of these very landowners who are giving up the land for this road have now received letters from the National Conservation Council about placing terrestrial protected area over their property and notifying them. Let's leave him alone. Let him dig that hole. I want him to go a little deeper. Just to say, Madam Speaker, is that I think the map is incorrect. It is not that the arterial road would connect with Harvest Stevenson Drive. It would connect with the East-West Arterial Way at that roundabout behind Lookout, and not connector. Okay. Through you, Madam Speaker, the proposed arterial road is very important to the District of Northside for a number of reasons. I go into ask a question about it in a minute, but I need to lay a little groundwork. The original proposal.
Craving your indulgence, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
I followed suit, but my indulgence was
Yeah. The original proposal.
not going to be more than a minute.
I'll try. The original proposal was to connect to the East-West Arterial Way through the Hatland Village. And that is totally unaccepted by the people of Northside, because you would completely destroy that community if you put a highway through it to connect with East-West Arterial Way. So the District Council has made this recommendation, and I want to ask the Minister to place more value on the needs of the traveling public and on the tourism aspect of having this arterial road to connect to Rum Point. And also it would remove substantial amount of speeding, drunk driving from the communities of Old Man Bay and Northside on a Saturday and a Sunday and come from Rum Point. So I'm asking the minister, please give more weight to those needs than to the expected opposition or recommendation that is likely to come from the National Conservation Council.
Honorable Minister for Planning.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, through you to the honourable member, and with a very strong desire not to be misunderstood. But I think the honourable member knows me well enough that I can safely say that I will be, from whatever level of authority I and my ministry have, I will be as objective as I possibly can. I will have certainly no leaning towards the council or anything else or any other entity. And what the member has mentioned to me with regards to leaning towards the needs that he expressed, I certainly will bear that in mind also. And I am very hopeful that the council itself, while it has its own, perhaps let me say, agenda, will bear those things in mind also. The only thing that I'm not prepared to do is to presuppose the results of what the council will determine. And I will be in a much better position when all of that is done, as I'm sure they will explain the rationale for whatever decisions they make or whatever recommendations they make for us to see what is the best way forward. And I certainly, once we know, then I will contact the member so that we can discuss the matter to see where we go from there.
If there are no further supplementaries, member from Easton.
Madam Speaker, I was just, I don't have a supplementary. I was just going to reinforce the request that my colleague from Georgetown made about the questions that has been down since August of last year for the September sitting. I think we started on the 7th of September last year. And, well, there have been questions outstanding prior to that. And at the adjournment of the last meeting, the Deputy Premier moved that all those questions would be brought forward to this meeting. Madam Speaker, I see the Premier and Deputy Premier say, no, well, I recall quite vividly that the Premier wasn't here. And I insisted that it be done. And the motion was moved and we voted on it. So the Premier may not be aware, should I say, of such that transpired during that day that we adjourned, sine die, but the Deputy Premier, it was a healthy discussion amongst us. So I don't know, I was just trying to get my part of some questions I have about concessions and the likes that are going to soon be too old to even be considered, because the concessions will have been gone. But so, Madam Speaker, if the government can answer that, I don't know what the member from Georgetown would like to say.
Recognize the fifth elected member from Georgetown. Did you have anything to add to your previous? Okay. Wish to direct it to the Premier, I would assume. Honorable Premier.
Madam Speaker, Standing Order 23 provides that where a meeting of the House concludes before all of the business is completed, particularly as it relates to questions, that those questions should be responded to in writing by the minister or member responsible. I am not aware that any of the questions were carried forward to this meeting of the House. It's certainly not, they haven't been circulated on business paper, and they certainly haven't been part of our consideration to be listed. but there is an obligation on ministers and members to ensure that the questions which were not dealt with at the last meeting are responded to in writing. I gather that has not taken place, and I will ask the clerk to let us have a list of those unanswered questions and ensure that my ministers, and in the case that they are members of cabinet, provide those responses in writing.
Member from Easton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me join in agreeing with the Right Honourable Premier in that these...
Member from Easton, I know that I'm suffering from a cold, but was there some constitutional change, or are you saying that his response is right and there's no need for an answer?
Neither of the two. That'll be the day that he's right.
Please perform.
Madam Speaker, that was someone just, but I did say Premier. So, but Madam Speaker, same said guy. Madam Speaker, the Premier is right in saying that these questions should be answered in writing. However, for 3 years, we have had questions that has not been answered in writing. And more importantly, Madam Speaker, when the standing orders makes provisions for it, absolutely. 23, that they must be answered in writing afterwards. However, when this House decides on a course of action, it does it on its own, and it's approved by this legislature to change those standing orders, like we just suspended one. So the Premier need to explain to us which was it.
But, Madam...
Honourable Premier, I've asked the clerk to look into the matter of record, and as I don't have it here, unless a member from Easton has a copy of the Hansard, or unless a Deputy Premier is in a position to so affirm, we would be debating back and forward. So we can do one or two things. We can either take our luncheon break now, because the lunch is here, so we can get a Hansard. If the motion was passed, then obviously that alters the position. But in any event, we're at the very first day of the meeting. I think the word is very clear that questions need to be answered, and that the government, based on what the Premier has said, would so direct. At this time, we'll take a luncheon break and reconvene at 2 p.m.